Dear students, today we are going to discuss on the topic characteristics of population. Introduction. The study of the interactions that organisms have among themselves and with their abiotic environment is called ecology. The subfield of ecology, which is a study of the dynamics and the structure of the populations of species and their ways of interaction with the environment, is called population ecology. It is related to other sub-branches of ecology such as physiology, community ecology, landscape ecology, systems ecology, and population genetics. Population genetics, which deals with the microevolution and gene frequencies, is known as population biology along with population ecology. Population ecology helps to diagnose how the sizes of populations of different species that live together in groups can undergo some changes over space and time. This branch of study is extremely important as it is a significant tool in conservation biology. This is especially true in case of the development of population violation analysis (PVA), as this is what makes it possible to have a properly analyzed prediction regarding the probability of a particular species persistence in a particular patch of habitat such as a national park over a long period of time. Population ecology might be just a subfield of biology, but in actuality it poses some serious problems for mathematicians and statisticians who are involved in the work dealing with population dynamics. The study is largely dependent on actual life studies and demography. Because of its deep links with the other subfields of ecology, it has helped to make evolutionary ecology one of the most important subjects in population biology. Size of population. Generally, population can mean a number of things, all related to the number of members of a species in different ways. In case of population ecology, the term population refers to a group or cluster of the same species which live in the same area. In other words, population means the total number of individual members or organisms in a particular population. It is usually denoted as N. The term effective population size, which is denoted as NE, may be defined as the number of breeding members existing in an ideal population. Amount of inbreeding and the population under consideration is likely to be displayed as same, just like the dispersion amount of allele frequencies selected randomly under genetic drift. It is generally observed that N2 is less than N, that is, the effective population size is less than the absolute population size. This difference has some very important applications in the field of conservation genetics. If the size of the population is small, it results in an increase in the genetic drift. When there is a drop in the population size for just a short period of it, it is called a population bottleneck. On the other hand, when the carrying capacity of the ecological niche of a species falls short for its rising population, it is referred to as overpopulation. It has been observed through studies that the population of an organism which is larger in size is smaller than that of the organism which is smaller in size. The census of the populations of different carnivorous, herbivorous, and autotrophs of a certain area is likely to show that the size of predators is greater than that of the prey. Observation also shows that the number of members in each trophic level gradually decreases, thus giving rise to a special kind of pyramid referred to as the pyramid of numbers. Interbreeding is often noticed about the different species that share a niche. This kind of interbreeding is seldom taken into consideration during the ecological study of populations. However, there are certain exceptions which are in evolutionary ecology as well as population genetics. It is possible to define population at various scales of space. Even very small patches of habitat can be occupied by local populations, for example, a puddle. Metapopulation is a set of such local populations which are connected to each other by dispersing individual members. There are various scales at which populations can be taken into consideration. For example, seas, continents, islands, or regions. In fact, it is possible to view the whole species as a population. There are differences among populations based on their stability. While some of the populations have gained stability for over thousands of years, others manage to persist owing to the continuous immigration. For example, in case of a small island, the population may become extinct often, but such an island has the possibility of being recolonized. There are also some populations which are temporary. Such populations consist of organisms during a specific phase of their life cycle. Larvae of dragonflies, for instance, live in the water for a hemipopulation. Population density, a major role in population analysis. Population density means the size of the population of a particular species in a given unit of area or space. Its basic method of calculation is by dividing the total population by the total area of land or by total volume of water, whichever is applicable in case of a particular species. It is largely dependent on the life history of the organism, which is the sequence of events or happenings that are related to the survival and reproduction. Populations from different sections of geographic range exhibit variations in their history. Structure of a population deals with the variations in demography. These include factors that influence population density, like whether reproduction is asexual or sexual, ratio of male offspring to female offspring, age of starting reproduction, number of reproductions in life, number of offsprings each time, etc. All these factors deeply influence the dynamics and evolution of a population. The age at which a species starts to reproduce is very important for the understanding of evolution and dynamics of its population. Other aspects being equal, it is likely that the individuals that reproduce earlier will be favored by natural selection more than the others in the population, because genes of individuals reproducing early enter gene pools earlier. However, other aspects are important. Some organisms of long lifespan choose delayed strategies of reproduction to ensure larger and more robust offspring. If genes of the reproducers spread through the population early, precocial development is preferred. Such individuals dominate the population more than the others which delay reproduction. However, they have to devote resources and energy to other physiological demands, known as the cost of reproduction. In many populations, late reproducers have better survival chances than early reproducers. The demands of reproduction, growth and defense are balances to produce populations with different strategies in a particular area. There are two types of populations. Our selected populations are opportunistic, with high intrinsic rate of growth, are noticed in reproductive behavior. These individuals give birth to many offspring once at an early age. The quantity of progeny helps to shape the population strategy in uncertain and variable environment much more than the quality of species. K-selected populations, on the other hand, tend to stay near the carrying capacity, K, which is the highest number of individuals sustained by environment. These individuals give birth to fewer offspring at a late age. Survival success depends more on fitness of offspring in stable environment than number. Such differences greatly influence the population dynamics of population density. The effects of the time in life at which an individual reproduces reflects in the life table of particular species. These life tables are used by demographers of plant, animal, human populations as well as microbial ecologists to be able to project the ideas about life expectancies of all populations. Apart from the effects that variations have on growth of population and its demography of a particular place, life table evaluates how the rate of growth of a population in a unit space is affected by rate of birth, growth, survival, reproduction and mortality. Distribution of population. In a population, which is a group of individuals of the same species of organisms living in the same area or space at the same time, it may not always be a simple task to identify some individuals. It may depend on the distribution of the individual organisms. Distribution of individual members of a particular species is one of the major ideas of population ecology. Distribution may be discussed in terms of the extent over which the population of a species is spread out. The other way to look at distribution is by analyzing where the occurrence of individuals is within a population of species. A simple example can highlight the major factors that influence the distribution of population. For instance, if the distribution of the southern two-lined salamanders is taken into consideration, it will be observed that the population is dense in the forested areas of the southern half of the eastern part of the United States. While the Mississippi River blocks the western block, colder temperature in the northern spread makes it difficult for their survival. The southern spread is devoid of suitable habitat and conditions. It is to be noted, however, that an organism's distribution is not solely determined by the physical characteristics. There are many other factors on which the distribution of population is dependent. Some of these factors are the presence of predators as well as competitors, which help to determine the distribution of a species. Distribution of individuals in a population follows certain patterns. There are three main patterns of distribution that are observed among the individuals in a population. These are random distribution, regulation distribution, and clumped distribution. Random distribution is the pattern of distribution of individuals in a population in which each of the individual members is equally likely to be present in any place within the threshold that limits the population. In this kind of distribution, the effect of competition is not very strong. The environment too does not have a strong influence on the distribution of the population. In case of regular distribution, the spacing of the individuals within the boundaries of population is uniform. The competition for resources among the individuals may be the reason for the uniformity in distribution. It may also be because of some regularity noticed in the distribution of the resources. Clumped distribution is one in which individuals occur in patches of high density. They are separated by areas where individuals seldom exist. These clumps arise because of the mutual attraction that the individuals have towards each other. This may also be because of the attraction of the members of a clump to a common site of resource. The patterns of distributions of individual members of a particular species may vary depending on the scale of space that is being considered. For instance, a particular species of lizards taken into consideration, such that the species lives on the rock outcroppings scattered in a habitat of grassland. When a single outcropping is looked at, the lizards are observed to be equally distributed. On a larger scale, however, they display clumped distribution based on the position of the rocks. Characteristics of movement in population. Movement of individual organisms in a population is an important mechanism that shapes biodiversity, including the distribution of individuals and species and their genes in time and space. Movement ecology is the study of the causes and effects of such movements which play a significant role by directly affecting biodiversity and indirectly determining patterns in the distribution and interaction of species. as well as in the changes in genetic diversity and traits of species. They also play a very important role in the modification of resource levels and habitat structures. The close relation between biodiversity and movements is given by the number of studies that highlight importance of dispersal of species, distribution, range shift, meta-population dynamics and relations of meta-community dynamics. Meta-population highlights that movement is important for assembling diverse communities through dispersal. For instance, this results in species sorting or mass scoring. There are different types of movements like nomadic movements, movement to defend territory or to find a mate. There are three common movements, that is, foraging, dispersal and migration. The movement vary from each other in many respects, mainly in case of spatio-temporal scales. Foraging is performed many times each day in the home range. The likelihood of foraging is almost equal at each point of time through the year. Dispersal is about moving from birthplace to other location for the purpose of reproduction. It occurs at time intervals and has peak times at specific seasons. Migration often tracks foraging conditions, though it may also cover thousands of kilometers. There is a wide range of time during which migration may be completed. Migration happens at regular intervals of seasons. Foraging includes finding food and other aspects of diet as well as habitat choice, choosing between safety and food and functional response. It is important for the survival and reproduction of the organism. Foraging shows that grazing and its heterogeneity has spatio-temporal effect on plant communities, invertebrates and vertebrates, and can decrease or increase diversity. It also has complex effects in different species by disturbing or distributing the patterns with dependence on risk of predation to foragers. In case of plants, risk of predation is reduced by foraging, but other plants in close vicinity also get the advantage of pollination. Dispersal takes place mainly to avoid kin competition and inbreeding, escaping deterioration of environmental conditions and bet hedging in the spatio-temporal stochastic environment, affecting genetic structure of population by gene flow on successful dispersal or erosion of genetic variation. When there is unsuccessful settlement and mortality as a result of dispersal. Migration is more specialized than foraging or dispersal and is a widespread phenomenon. It can include many species and cover all methods of locomotion. The effects of migration have only been studied in some species and provides different insights. For instance, on subsidizing a consumer population, the predator may show reproductive responses. Migrators create pulses of migration, transport parasites and pathogens. Birth and death rates. There are several factors that influence the birth and death rates of species in the natural environment. The structure and population of their population, community or ecosystem. The constants of the size and temperature of the body is linked with individual metabolism, which also has extensive links with the mortality rate of a species. A lot of heterogeneity in rates of birth and death of invertebrates, plants, birds, fish and mammals is predictable despite their extrinsic sources in the natural systems. Since the dynamics of population, community or ecosystem of a species are governed largely by the birth and death rates, it is important to understand the factors that control these in different species. Many ecological and evolutionary theories are based on these. The rate of growth, rate of reproduction, and maximum lifespan can be predicted with the help of the size and temperature of the body, though the general relationship is not properly known or established. There are mainly two different classes of birth and death rates, that is, intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic explanations include the correlations between lifespan and the metabolic rate of an individual, or take into consideration the two key determinants of metabolic rate, that is, temperature and size of the body. Organisms with short lifespan are generally observed to have high metabolic rate with high rate of decay or damage of cells, probably due to oxidative free radicals accumulation. On the other hand, extrinsic explanations show that accident, disease or predation are the causes of death of organisms in their natural environment before reaching the maximum lifespan. Organisms can still undergo cellular decay or intrinsic patterns of senescence, but these occur in later stages of life and can hardly cause any damage to the fitness of the organism. Though the mortality and growth rates of different species of animals or invertebrates depend on temperature and metabolism, there is hardly any such correlation of statistical importance noticed in multicellular plants. However, in case of both plants and animals, the mass dependence of natural mortality is mathematically proven and can be predicted. Crude birth rate and crude death rate are the rate of birth or death respectively by considering a population of 1,000 individuals. These are used to get the rate per 10,000 and are statistical values that can be used for the measurement of growth or decline of population, which is influenced by several factors. Organisms need an optimum condition in their environment for proper maintenance of mortality rate, growth and reproduction. The availability of water and food is an important factor affecting the proper development of an organism, such that the health and fitness of the body is maintained for efficient reproduction and long lifespan. Food webs show how one species is dependent on another or any others for food and existence, or how they compete with each other. So, their interaction is also important. Natural calamity, too, largely affects the lifespan of the species. Thus, there are several factors that influence the birth and death rates of different species and hence affect the population growth as well. Conclusion: a population is a group of individuals of the same species which interbreed and live together with similar ways of life in the same place. Population ecology is the study of such populations to observe and understand the changes that they undergo over time, being influenced by various aspects or conditions of their environment. It also includes the study of how environment of populations influence the distribution and density of the population, variations in the size of population or the age structure. The size of population can be decreasing, increasing or simply constant. Effective population size is generally seen to be less than absolute population size. The size of population depends on factors like carrying capacity of ecological niche and genetic drift. Statistically, a population of species of larger sizes is smaller than population of species with smaller sizes, thus forming the pyramid of number. The size of a population in a particular unit of area is called the population density, derived by dividing the total population by the total volume of space acquired by it. The life history of an organism largely influences the population density of a species, as the sequence of events that influence the survival and reproduction in a particular environment has direct relationship with its density and distribution. There are three different kinds of distribution, that is, random, regular and clumped distributions. The distribution of population depends on the resource of food and water. suitable environment for reproduction, mutual attraction, etc. Accordingly, individuals show different kinds of movements to meet their needs, such as foraging, dispersal, migration, etc. Several intrinsic and extrinsic factors influence their rates of birth, growth, and death, like body size and temperature and availability of food. Thank you.